Today, we're going to see a squat cue that helped me a lot on my squat. And that will be very helpful, especially for those of you guys that feel that they fall forward during their squat or that aren't able to keep the bar in a stable position. So if whenever you're squatting, you're feeling that the bar is rolling over, you're losing your upper body positioning, this video will definitely help you out. So there's something very important. When you're setting up, you need to have a proper elbow positioning. And the reason for that is because the bar is sitting on your upper body, whatever you're going to do with your upper body will have very big impact on what is actually going on with your squat. So I'll just give you a very quick example. If here, when I'm setting up, I'm very hunched forward, as you see, the bar is definitely not in the stable place, and also I'm not able to create bracing and good upper body positioning. So you see, by just having the bar sitting in a weird spot and also with a weird elbow angle, my squat positioning is all over the place. If you look at me right now, you don't need to see the squat to know it's not going to go great. The reason for that is because of that elbow positioning once more. You want the bar to be able to rest on your back without necessarily having to force anything. And if when the bar is sitting on your back, your elbows are very forward, meaning they're almost parallel to the ground, you will tend to actually shift forward when squatting. That's why it's very important when you're setting under the bar to make sure, instead of having your elbows completely parallel to the ground here, which will then drive me forward, I want to have my elbows slightly pointing towards the ground. So instead of having them here, I want to have them here. And here, as you can see, I'm in a much better position. I can brace, I can keep that good upper body positioning because instead of setting with my elbows too far high, parallel to the ground, I have my elbows slightly pointing towards the ground and I'm in a much better position. By just creating this simple position at the beginning of the squat, you're maximizing your chances to have a proper technique. But there's one caveat to that, and that's the following one. If when I start to squat, I have this good elbow positioning, here, I go down, and if at the moment I'm trying to get up with my squat, my elbows rise up, you see the bar is sliding on my back. And now it's an empty bar, I can recover from that, but with weight on the bar, that will be much harder, if not impossible to recover from. So here you can see my elbows are in good position. When I drive up, if my elbows go up, here, I'm being pushed forward and there's nothing I can do to resist that. So that's when the elbow drive aspect will come into place, and that's the cue I want to focus this video about. So elbow positioning, very important, but you need to have a proper elbow drive in order to have the full picture and be able to produce as much force as possible on your squat. So the elbow drive is simply driving upwards with the help of your elbows. So at the moment you rise from the bottom of the squat, instead of having your elbows go up, so going parallel to the ground, you want at most to have them stacked under the bar in order to be able to press upwards. Because if I grab this stick right now and whenever I'm at the bottom of my squat, if my elbow rise up, as you can see, I'm not pushing upwards, I'm actually shoving myself forward, which is why in the intro of this video I said whenever you're squatting, if you feel you're getting hunched forward, you feel there's a force that's shoving you forward, that's mostly because of improper elbow drive. So when you're setting up, as we saw, you want to have this good elbow positioning, but more importantly, you want to keep that good elbow positioning, especially at the bottom when you're trying to go up. Here, if I want to go up, I can drive with my elbows upwards, and all of the strength I'll be able to produce will go from bottom to up, which is exactly what you want. And on the contrary, if whenever I'm pushing my elbow rise, instead of pushing forward, I'm actually getting pushed forward, and there's nothing I can do to resist that. So that's why sometimes on some squat fails, you see the athletes getting pushed forward. It's in most cases because of improper elbow drive in the squat. So now I'm going to demonstrate that with the bar. Here, as you can see, I have good elbow positioning at the beginning, keeping my elbows in the same position, and when I'm about to drive up, keep my elbows under the bar, here. And once again, what you really want to avoid is having your elbows shoot up, going parallel to the ground whenever you're coming out of the hole. So which would look like this. and you see the bar is rolling, there's nothing I can do to prevent that. So if whenever you're squatting, the bar rolls on your back, it doesn't happen by accident, it doesn't happen out of the blue, it's mostly because of improper elbow drive or elbow control throughout your movement. So if you make sure to tackle properly this elbow positioning, it will definitely help you out a lot on your squat and also your squat strength. Now, a couple of things to consider. First is you don't necessarily want to have your elbows pointing towards the ground 100%. What I mean by that is, for instance, I'm not a very flexible athlete. If I try to force this position here, I can do that, but I'm in a very uncomfortable position. And now like it's just an empty bar, but if I try to add kilos on that, I don't think I'm able to do that. So just the simple bar is a bit hurtful right now. So it's not about forcing your elbows pointing towards the ground. It's more so you want to have them as far as you can from that parallel position and find a position where you're feeling comfortable in your upper body. So for instance, for me, that position is something that looks a bit like this. So as you can see, I'm not quite here, and I'm actually middle ground. So not parallel to the floor, but not perpendicular to the floor either. And you just want to find that based off of you, your leverages, how flexible you are, and so on and so forth. I have two very different examples to show you. First, Clarence Kennedy. As you can see, he has a very narrow grip and he still manages to keep his elbow drive constant throughout his squat. On the contrary, a very different example is Gavin Aiden, the current powerlifting 93 kg record holder. As you can see, he has a much wider grip than Clarence, so he's a less flexible athlete, but he still manages to also keep a proper elbow drive throughout his squat. So in conclusion, the goal is not to have your elbows perfectly perpendicular to the floor, nor to have them parallel to the floor. You want to find a good position that you're able to get into comfortably while keeping a good drive during your squat. Second thing to consider is actually widening a bit your grip. Like I showed you in the example, if I'm trying to set like that, for me there's no way I can properly set the bar. So which is why usually, especially the guys watching this video, the less flexible dudes, you really want to have your grip a bit wider. What I personally do is I usually will have my index finger on the ring, and based off of that, if on some occasions I feel a bit tighter than usual, I'll stick to that, and if on some occasions I feel a bit more flexible, then I'll close in my grip 1 or 2 fingers. But unless you're pretty flexible in your upper body, usually your fingers on the ring is probably a good place to start. And how do you know your hand grip is too close? Is because you'll have pain in your shoulders, you'll have pain in your elbows, in your wrist, and so on and so forth. So if whenever you're doing low bar squat, you're experiencing a lot of pain in those areas, it's mostly because you have a grip that's too narrow for your own good. And doing some warm-ups could be helpful, but more importantly, having a proper grip positioning will be even more helpful. Last little detail, if you saw me squat, especially squat heavy, I always have wrist straps on my wrist. I use the SBD flexible wrist straps, whether it's the medium ones or the large ones. And the reason for that is when you saw me take my grip, you can see that my wrists are actually in a bent position. And this position is not hurtful when I don't have a lot of weight on the bar, but it can definitely be hurtful with like 220, 240, 250 kilos. So this position allows for me to have this good angle with my elbows. If I were to have an elbow position with my wrist, you can see I would be much higher with my elbows and I would feel less strong. If that's something you're also experiencing on your end, having wrist straps when squatting heavy can be a huge game changer for you and allow you to have proper elbow positioning with good wrist positioning without having your wrist hurt like crazy during squats. That was it for today's videos, guys. I hope it was helpful. I hope you learned a couple of things. If that's the case, the best way to let me know is to comment and also subscribe to the channel. I have a lot of videos coming, whether it's how to become stronger in a squat, your bench, or deadlift, how to program for powerlifting, vlogs, etc. So if you don't want to miss that out, make sure to subscribe. Also, if you want to take it a step further and follow my powerlifting programs, I have my personal training app. So if you go to thepanash.app, you'll be able to access my training programs. I have more than 15 training programs you can access right now with one single monthly subscription. That was it for me today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. See you in the next one.